Joining us right now is Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman Biggs, we just talked with Senator McSally about the potential for more of these checks and more relief for businesses and individuals. Where do we stand with that in the House?
Well, the House is going to probably take it up Friday, depending on what the Senate does. The bill is originating in the Senate. It's been sitting there for probably a week now, but Schumer has been trying to stretch this, as well as Pelosi, well beyond what the administration has asked for, well beyond what may be necessary at this point. But I anticipate tomorrow morning that the Senate's going to vote on something by either unanimous consent procedure or voice vote, and then it'll come to the House on Friday.
Okay, so then obviously you have been in disagreement with some of this because of the amount of the spending that's in there and a lot of the things that are in these bills that have nothing to do with stimulating the economy. What is this one going to look like? Are you going to vote for it?
Well, nobody, as you and I sit here and talk, nobody knows what this bill is going to even look like, so it's impossible to say whether I'll support or not support. But what I will tell you is that the administration has asked for $251 billion to replenish the PPP program, which is the Small Business Administration program. That's what they felt was the essential thing right now. The reality is, as I pointed out to the administration, the last bill gave authority for the Federal Reserve probably to backfill that without even bringing it back to another vote. But what's Schumer and Pelosi doing? They're adding a whole lot of other things at this point that it's really tough to try to keep up with what they're asking for, because they'll back off, then they'll throw something else in. So they're moving the goalpost a bit.
Okay, so let's shift to Dr. Fauci. You've been very vocal in wanting him gone. What are the reasons why you think Fauci should not be in the position he's in?
Well, Dr. Fauci, he has admitted two things that I think are critical here. Number one, he has admitted that every model, he doesn't trust any of the models anymore because they're all proven to be unreliable. And yet he's the guy that has basically relied on all those unreliable models and given us so many policies, some for positive and some for not so positive. But the second thing is, and this is really different from people who are pandemic specialists, he did not bother to take into account, as he admitted to us, societal, social, economic costs, and those are important when you develop a strategy to deal with a pandemic, as pandemic experts would tell you.
So he is known as an infectious disease expert, maybe the foremost expert in the world. Who then do you think is better suited to replace him? Are you happy with the job Dr. Burks is doing? Whose advice should the president be taking?
I'm not going to give specific names, but I do know that there are pandemic experts out there, and I think that they might be people that you'd want to go to. Dr. Burks, Dr. Fauci, their expertise is maybe a little bit different than a pandemic expert. And I will just tell you this, Dr. Burks, when these people think that 17 to 25 million people unemployed in this country is merely an inconvenience, the loss of capital, the loss of life saving, the societal cost, the suicide rate increasing, these things, when they say that these are just mere inconveniences, well, when you're drawing a government paycheck and you're employed, somebody else's problem is an inconvenience. Reagan used to talk about that. He said that depression is a recession or an inconvenience when somebody else is unemployed. A depression is when you're unemployed, and that's kind of what we have going on here.
So your idea would be what? What would you say is what should we be doing? Should we be opening the economy sooner rather than later? What advice would you give, let's say, Governor Ducey, if he were to ask you what you think should be done?
I would do a couple of three things. Number one, I would let the hospitals govern themselves on whether they want to do elective surgeries or not. We've got rural hospitals that are in an economic bind that could close because they're bleeding money. They're having to shed people and personnel, and some are on the narrow cusp. And I would let them make that decision, and I would urge the governor to let them determine whether they have resources if there is a surge in the COVID, which we anticipate right about now in Arizona, and let them make the determination. I know that they're taking inventories, so that'd be number one. Number two, I would say you would allow retail shops, let them open up the way that they normally would, with the same kind of social distancing and care you see in grocery stores. Mike, I know you go to the grocery store. I got to go to the grocery store, and we go to restaurants and we to get takeout food. And you're social distancing. You're following all of the guidelines and advice that people have put out there for us. And if you can do it at a grocery store, or for Pete's sakes at a liquor store, then I would suggest you can do it in a furniture store. And we have businesses that are just dying on the vine, and we need to take care of that. And so I think we can responsibly allow Americans to be free and to make these adjustments. And I think that's important to realize.
Okay, Congressman, last question. As far as another round of what we're calling stimulus, but another round of relief, whether it's for employees or for the employers with the PPP, what is a deal breaker for you? Because I know that you were one of the minority voices that was against the last one, but what's the deal breaker for you? If you see it again, you're going to vote no again.
Well, if they throw in, like they did last time, nearly $1 trillion of spending that's absolutely unrelated to coronavirus, that would be a deal breaker. If they throw in things like that are just policy decisions, such as nationwide voting, that's going to be by mail voting. That's going to be a deal breaker. If you throw in things that are expansion of policy and removal of welfare reforms that were put in place under Bill Clinton, and so you can expand a constituency that makes it really hard to ever bring this back down, that's going to be a deal breaker. And then the fourth thing I would say that we have to really consider is, are you looking to find a way to offset the spending here, or are you going to add to what is already a $4 trillion plus structural deficit for this year alone, which puts us at about a 26 to 27. By the time we're done, we're going to be sitting at $26-27 trillion in national debt this year, Mike. At the same time that our GDP is contracting.
All excellent points, Congressman. As always, it's a pleasure to talk with you. We always appreciate the time.
Thanks, Mike. Talking to you.
All right.